Hello everybody and welcome to my channel. I swear that these are not all filmed on the same day. I feel like the past like 6 videos have been filmed in this sweatshirt, but it's just so comfortable. And I also found out it's my husband's work sweatshirt. He came home and he was like, is that mine? And I was like, I don't know, what's yours is mine, what's mine is mine. And he was like, I think that's my work sweatshirt. He was like, is there a cut on the sleeve? And I was like, no. And he's like, the other one. Yes. So apparently I stole one of his work sweatshirts, but it's so comfortable. It's so like big and oversized and comfortable. So I swear these are all filmed on different days for the most part. There's some that are filmed on the same days. But yeah, let's actually get into the video. We're going to be talking about my most surprising books of 2024. So this is different from best books because some of these are just like good. They're good. I just had no expectations, or I was expecting it to be bad, and it like blew my mind. Yeah, like I said in the most disappointing, I just want this to be like cozy vibes, this, and I'm literally filming disappointing, surprising, and best books all in the same day. So I do look somewhat similar to the next 3 videos that are coming up because I just like want to have all my thoughts just out right now. Like I've been waiting to film these because it is January 1st. So I am excited to finally film these. It is the year is finished, 2024 is done. So I can finally do these videos because some of these, there were late additions to this video, which is crazy. So anyway, let's actually get into most surprising. So we're going to start with these are really not in any kind of order this time. Like I tried to order them. Number 1 and 2 are probably the only that are like solid 100% these belong here. Everything else is kind of, it's loose. It's loose in the area that it is. Anyway, let's do some honorable mentions first. So we're not going to talk about these as much as the main list just because, but I only have 3. So the first one up is The Lost Sisters. I finally read the Holly Black Cruel Prince short story that is following the other sister, not Jude. I literally can't remember her name. I gave it a 4. I loved it. I thought it was great. People hate this book. I had 0 expectations for this, but it literally made me want to reread The Cruel Prince because I loved seeing everything from her point of view. It didn't make me, it made me like her a little bit more, but I feel like the point was just to give us this other point of view that we were missing, and that was like such a crazy like moment in the book that you're like, oh shit, this was going on behind the scenes the whole time. I loved seeing the behind the scenes and how the manipulation was going on and the thought process behind the character. So good. It was so good, and it was such a great addition to the series in my opinion. So I loved it. I thought it was fantastic. Next up we have Never Lie by Frida McFadden. This is on here literally for, because this is like a 3. It's a 3, but it is on here for the sole purpose that I have yet to like until this one. Any book by Frida McFadden that is not in the Housemaid series, like literally. Like, I have not liked a single one except for this one, and this one still was like fine, but this one legitimately like had me like screaming. Like I was shocked. I was legitimately so surprised by the end of this book. I got every single thing wrong. I read this as a buddy read with one of my friends because she was reading it and she was like, I have a theory and I want to tell you. And I was like, I haven't read the book. And she was like, read it. So we read it like literally in one day together. And I told her, I was like, oh, this is going to happen. This is going to happen. It's so obvious this is going to happen. And then not a single thing happened the way I thought it was going to. There was like one thing that I picked up on that was pretty obvious that she also picked up on. But both of us were like, what is this ending? Like what actually happened? It was crazy. It was crazy. I wasn't expecting it. And last on the most honorable mentions is a book I literally just read, and that is The Most Wonderful Crime of the Year. I loved this. This was so close to a 5-star. This is a 4-star. This was so fun. This was everything that I wanted in a Christmas rom-com mystery. I loved the humor. I loved the characters. I loved the mystery. I thought it was just really cute. This is a cozy romantic mystery. That's really what this is. And it was just great. I could not give it a 5-star though, because it was definitely missing some of the emotional impact of the main character's romance, just because like it started off the book with obvious like him pining for her. It was very obvious. It's not a spoiler or anything. My favorite chapter is we actually have a chapter from his point of view in the past to explain why he's so obsessed with her, and it was the best chapter in the book. And I'm so sad because I think we 1000% needed his point of view throughout the whole book. I think that would have made the book an easy 5-star. I would have loved this book to have been longer because I wanted to explore their relationship a little bit more instead of like just him being obsessed with her. which I still love. So I do think it was very cheesy, but I love cheesy sometimes. And for me, this was like the best type of cheesy. And I'm so glad I got this book because I originally wasn't getting this book. And then I was like, you know what? I really want to read a romantic Christmas book. And then this was literally everything that I possibly could have wanted. So yeah, if you just add his point of view in there, this would have been probably one of my favorite books of the year. So I love this one. This was a absolute shock. It went from not wanting to read it to it being like up there for favorites this year. Okay, moving into the top 10. Like I said, not everything is in order. Like number 9 and 10 can be switched, 7 and 8 can be switched, but generally I'm gonna still do it in an order, so that just helps my brain. So coming in at number 10, we have Gallant. This was a major surprise. I love The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. I forgot that V. Schwab wrote that before I read this, and I've heard nothing but bad things about this book, so I didn't have like the highest expectations for this. I gave this a 5-star. I loved this book, and it's funny because the things that I loved about this book weren't really the main plot line, but actually the plot line that was going on kind of in the backstory that was moving the plot along, the story between the parents in this. Oh my gosh, I don't think I've cried that hard since reading Daisy Jones and the Six or The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. Like I sobbed. I sobbed. This is in one of my Illumicrate Purge videos. I think it's in the first one. So if you want to go see my reaction and my face after I finished reading that, I would definitely go check that video out. But I adored this. I thought this was fantastic. And then when I remembered she wrote Addie LaRue, I was like, yeah, that makes sense. But it's just different. It's different in a way that Addie LaRue was. So I love this. I love this. I'm surprised not more people like this. And this is definitely a favorite book of the year. Although I think it's in honorable mentions in my favorite list. But yeah, loved it. 5-star. Shocked I love this as much as I did. Coming in at number 10 is a book I didn't think I would read this year. It was kind of like a jump scare that I ended up reading it, and I listened to the dramatized adaptation of it, which a lot of people don't like those, but I thought it was perfect for this book. I read Red Rising and I gave it a 5-star. It's like a soft 5-star, and it's more of a 5-star for what it is and what it's doing. It's just really well written and really interesting. It's not something that's going to be like a favorite 5-star of all time. I'm also not even sure if I'm gonna like the rest of the series because I already started Golden Sun, and I hate that there's a massive time jump between this book and the next book because I wanted the stuff in between this book and the Golden Sun. I'm so mad that there's a time jump. So it does kind of taint this one just a little bit, but this book is so different than what the rest of the series is going to be about. I'm really nervous about the rest of the series, but I am shocked that I like this because this is not something that I would generally enjoy. But I just loved the relationship dynamics in this. I loved the like politics in this, which again, it's not something I normally love, is a ton of politics, but the politics were so interesting. And the main character just was so fascinating. He did get really annoying sometimes, but I think the funny thing is, I don't think I would have finished this book. I think this would have been a DNF if I physically read it. To me, I think the dramatized adaptation of it is in the audiobook was literally why I enjoyed this book so much, which is why it's a weird reading experience. This was just a weird one for me because I love this book and I can see why I wouldn't like it at the same time. It's so strange. This is just such a hard book to talk about. So I finished this in December, and yeah, I really did enjoy it for what it was and what it's doing. And I am very curious how I'm going to react to the rest of the series. But I had zero expectations going into this. I thought I was going to DNF it. I thought this was not going to be for me, and it apparently is for me. Next up at number 8 is Annie Bot. Again, zero expectations, and it ended up being, I think it's in my honorable mentions for my favorite books. I loved this. I love 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 this. I feel like this is what really solidified the fact that I like AI sci-fi. I love it. This book was so amazing, and it's basically following an AI robot who is designed for one specific thing, but she is questioning her existence. She is questioning everything in life, and the whole world questions like what makes someone human. And I love that. I adored that aspect of this book. It also really talked about the human capacity for evil when they think they can get away with it. And it's insane the amount of abuse that because there's a lot of abuse in this book. So I would definitely go in wary. There's a lot of trigger warnings in this book. And it is crazy what, and again, not surprising, what people are capable of when they don't think they'll get in trouble for doing something, when they feel like they can just let all their frustrations out onto a thing instead of a person. It's crazy. It's crazy. And I think it's definitely a glimpse into what AI robots, it's a glimpse in the future, in my opinion. To me, this is how some people are going to treat AI and how AI is going to react to it. So it's just, to me, it's a glimpse into the, I was gonna say far future, but potentially nearer future than we think. So I loved it. I thought it was great. If you want a very interesting sci-fi that is more like literary fiction, but it's a very interesting conversation about humans and life and what makes a person human. Next up, we have A Lesson in Vengeance. This was shocking. No one likes this book. No one likes this book. I like a 3.5 on Goodreads. I read this for, I think, the Owl Crate blog. I don't remember what I read this for. I think it was for the Owl Crate blog. I loved this. This is not fantasy either. I think this is tagged as somewhat fantasy. This isn't fantasy. This is dark academia with toxic sapphic relationships and toxic friendships, and this is everything. I loved this, and it's no surprise because to me this like read a lot like The Relationship in Bloom, which is also on this list. You're gonna see that in a few minutes. But I adore this, and I love the ending. Like, this has an ending you would think I would not like, but it was so perfect. It was perfection for what the rest of this book was. And this was a shocking, like, I think I gave it a 4.5. Absolutely shocking that I love this so much. And I don't really have anything else to say about it just because this was nowhere on my radar. It was one of those books that I was just like, oh, I have to read it for this video and let's just read it. I've had this for a really, really long time. And I read it and I was like, this is so good. This is so good. So I love this. I thought this was fantastic. I would recommend this for anyone who wants to try a little bit of a different dark academia than what you're used to. It is something. That ending is phenomenal. Next up, I have one that may be a little bit of a surprise to people that it's on the most surprising list, but Throne of the Fallen. I gave this a 4.5, I think. I really enjoyed this. And for me, this was a massive surprise because this is the foray into the adult. So you guys know I read Kingdom of the Wicked series and I gave the first one a 5-star, hated the second one. I gave the second like a 2 stars. And then the third one I gave like a 3.75 to I think it's a 4-star. I think it's a solid 4-star. So I had expectations in the floor for this one just because I figured this would be more along the lines of book 2, where it was focused more on the smut of everything going on, because Carrie Maniscalco was told, okay, book 2 is adult, go ahead, and she said yes. She went out of control. Like, she lost the plot in that book because she was more obsessed with just writing sex scenes in that book. So that's what I was pretty much assuming this was going to be, and boy was I wrong. Like, yeah, there's sex in this book, but the plot is so good. It's so good. There's like a competition, and of course I'm a sucker for a competition, but I love the characters. I wasn't expecting to love like a standalone like romance like this that's part of the world this much, but it like revisited a bunch of stuff from the first 3 books and the series, and it was so interesting, and I love what was done with this book. So I had my expectations blown away by this book, and I was so happy that I ended up ordering the Fairy Loot edition of this, like, just in case, so that it matches all my other books. So yeah, I loved this, and I'm nervous to go into the next one because I haven't heard great things about Throne of Secrets, but this was phenomenal and definitely a huge surprise. Next up, we have the Jasad Heir. This was just one of those that I had 0 expectations for. Actually, I had low expectations because I was working on my Lumicrate videos and they were going so badly that I was just expecting them all to be terrible. So when I got to this, it was like the biggest breath of fresh air, and it was nothing like what I was expecting because this was listed in the romantasy category of Goodreads last year, I think. And there's heavy romance, but I would 1000% put this in the fantasy category over romantasy. I loved this. I thought this was so interesting. I really hadn't heard anything about this book. So again, just a book that wasn't on my radar really. And then I hadn't heard really anybody talk about, and I read it and I was like, why is no one talking about this book? This book is so good. So I am so happy I got to this book, and I wasn't expecting to get to it this year either. I just, again, it was not anywhere in my brain. And now the second book is one of my most anticipated books of next year. That's how crazy much I love this book. So yeah, this is surprising just because, again, wasn't on my radar. Next up, we have The Gathering by CJ Tudor. This was our pick for October this year for the book club, and I loved it. It was not, I shouldn't love it. I shouldn't. It's kind of this gritty detective story, but it was so good. The way the characters were written, the storyline, it even had like a million different characters we were following, and I still loved it. It did everything I don't like in a book, and I still loved it, and I gave it a 5-star. I thought it was such a fun detective fiction book that kind of had a spin on the vampire story and kind of like an indigenous people story, because the vampires are basically Native Americans in this story, and they're treated terrible. Like, obviously there's some difference, like the vampires are still vampires and they are doing some questionable things, but there is definitely, like, the way that the story was told, it was just such a deeper story than I was expecting, and I loved it. Loved the characters. I thought the rap was amazing, and I was shocked. Like, I was actually taken completely by surprise by one of the twists, and I'm pretty sure we're getting a second book because it definitely hints at this like cliffhanger of another case that our main character is going to go on, and I love our main character, so I am incredibly excited if there's going to be a second book. Coming in at number 3 is Bloom by Delilah S. Dawson. Again, this is a book that does something that I normally hate in books, but it was so perfect for what this was. Again, zero expectations. I actually was kind of expecting not to like it just because I read this when I was still trying to figure out my horror taste. I do think I have like a better idea of what my horror taste is now, and this definitely is part of it. And this is basically sapphic, not a love story, sapphic romance with farmer's market horror. That's what this is. It's so good. I love novellas. I love horror novellas. They're just so good, and they just get to the point, and this was just creeping dread perfection. And again, I should hate this because of the ending, but there's no other option. Like, there's literally no other option for this book, and it ended amazing. And the author's note, if you read this, please read the author's note, because that is what pushed this up to like a 4.5. I absolutely love the author's note and the point that the author makes, and that just made it just rounded out the book perfectly. So I loved this. Huge surprise. I really shouldn't like this, but I love it so much. Coming in at number 2 is a book that has like swept the book world, and I have a whole video explaining this entire book the best way I possibly can. There's a lot of stuff that has come out since then about the book that is not in that video, and some stuff that has been debunked, some stuff that nothing's been proven true, but some stuff that is like, there's just more stuff. There's more stuff since I put that video out like a month or 2 ago, and that is We Used to Live Here. This is amazing. This is a work of genius, or of a madman. Like, there's no in between. He is both. Like, that's just what it is. So this story is taking place like basically in this kind of strangers taking over kind of situation, and it's all like basically in this one house, and it is so trippy. It is insane. If you really want the full experience of this book, I would recommend reading and listening to the audiobook at the same time. I would recommend reading it twice, and you have to go on the Reddit threads and the Reddit pages and go look through stuff, because it is just so intense. This is a whole universe in a book, and there's going to be more that are included, and it's just insane. It's insane. There's coded messages. Like I have written over this entire book. Like, I have written everywhere in this book. I've highlighted things. I've written everywhere. I've never defaced a book before. And it was so fun. It was fantastic. So yeah, I would recommend, if you want to read this, you got a lot of work to do, but it's so worth it. This is a 5-star. And then my number 1 most surprising book of the year is a book that I wasn't even gonna read, but I love the premise so much. I was like, okay, this is I should have done a video too. I started a video series of last chance author videos where I was on the 3rd book of an author that I did not like. And this was like their 3rd book they released, or the 3rd book that I was reading. And either I was going to like it and continue reading, or I was going to not like it and never read another book. And I just I should have done that with this book, because this was the 3rd book that that I was reading by this author, but I just didn't feel like it because I just assumed it was going to be bad, and I loved it. I gave it a 4-star. It is Under the Surface by Diana Urban. I hated her last book. Like, it was on my worst list last year, and the book before was just so mediocre. It was just so bleh. This book was so good. This was so fun. I was so panicked while reading this book, which is what you want from a thriller. This takes place in Paris, and it's literally what is it? There's a saying in Paris, it's like as above, so below, and that's definitely what this book is. And it's even the cover. The cover has one of our main characters above in Paris searching for his friend, and then you see a picture of below Paris, and it's the friends stuck underneath in the catacombs, lost. It's insane. It is insane. I was so stressed the whole book. There are legitimate stakes in this book, and I was just like traumatized reading this book, and it was so good. I loved every second of reading this book. I don't know why I didn't give it a 5-star, because I'm trying to think of why I didn't give it a 5-star. I feel like it didn't really drag ever. I just feel like it didn't hit as a 5-star, but it was definitely a high 4.5. Loved it. I loved it, and it definitely was my most surprising because I was expecting it to be a 1-star and for me to never read this author again. So now I'm like, crap. I gotta try the next book that they come out with. And yeah, that is everything that I have for you today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Definitely let me know down in the comments down below which you thought was your most surprising book of the year. And yeah, this is a fun video. This is fun. I'm glad to do this after doing disappointing and worse. This was much more fun to film. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed it. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any future content. Make sure you like the video, and I'll see you guys in the next video.